Hi seniors, we're going to do our notes through video today, and hopefully that'll be a little easier for some of you. We're still continuing with what chapter is it? 7. And we're looking at chapter 7, section 4 today. So 7.4. And this is April 3rd. All right, so we're looking at the slope-intercept form of an equation. So the slope-intercept form of an equation is y equals mx plus b. It's the most recognized form of the equation of a line, where m is the slope of the line and b is the y-intercept of the line. It's where the line would cross the y-axis. And all we're going to work on for the first part of this section is we're just going to learn how to put an equation in this form, and then from that find out what the slope and the y-intercept is of the line. And later we're going to be using that to actually graph these lines. So for example, we're going to find the slope and y-intercept of each line. So we'll start really simple. Okay, we'll start really basic. So number one, if we have, for example, y equals 2/3 x plus 7. Okay. This is already in the form that we need it in. The form that we need it in is always solve for y. You always want your equation solved for y. That's what this form is. And once your equation is solved for y, then all you need is this coefficient of x, that's going to be your slope, and then this constant at the end, that's always going to be your y-intercept. So this equation, all the work is already done for us. All we have to do is state the answer, and our answer would be that the slope is 2/3. Now, one thing that students will do wrong there is they'll put 2/3 x. The slope is just the coefficient of the x. Don't put the x with it. And the y-intercept in this example is 7. Doesn't get any easier than that. So of course they're going to make it a little more challenging. So suppose we have something like 3x plus 5y equals 10. 3x plus 5y equals 10. Now we have to get this equation in the correct form. In other words, we need to solve this equation for y. So we're trying to get y all by itself on one side of the equation. So to do that, the first thing we're going to have to do is move this 3x to the other side of the equation. And we do that by subtracting 3x from both sides. So that's going to leave us with 5y equals, now we could write it as 10 minus 3x, but again, we want to get it in this exact form. And in this form, the x comes before the constant. The 10 here would be a constant because it doesn't have a variable. So instead of writing 10 minus 3x, I'm actually going to put the minus 3x first and then plus 10. So that's going to take a little getting used to, but you want to write the x before the constant. Now this isn't quite solved for y yet. We still need to divide by 5. And when we do that, we want to give everybody their own little personal denominator. Don't just do one big line divided by 5. Because again, we're aiming for this particular form of the equation of a line. So now when I do that, I have y equals negative 3/5 x, because negative 3x over 5, that's just negative 3/5 x, plus, and then 10 over 5 is 2. So now it's in the correct form that we need it in. So the slope is just that coefficient of x, so it's negative 3 over 5, and the y-intercept it's just the constant at the end, so that's 2. So notice your slope could be positive, it could be negative, it could be fractions like we got, it could be whole numbers. Any type of real number could be the slope and the y-intercept. All right, let's look at one more example here. All right, so we're going to write our formula back up here. Y equals mx plus b. So example 3, we're still finding the slope and the y-intercept. So what if we had 4x minus 2y equals negative 17. Let's throw negatives all over the place. All right, so again, before we can find the slope and the y-intercept, we need to get this equation solved for y first. We need y all by itself. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 4x first, minus 4x. And I can't combine these terms. These are not like terms. All right, so over here I'm going to have negative 2y. And then to put this in the proper form, I'm going to write the x before the constant. So this is going to be negative 4x, and this time it's a minus 17. And now I divide everybody by negative 2 and give everybody their own little personal denominator. So now I have y equals a negative 4 over a negative 2. That's going to simplify. First of all, a negative over a negative, that's going to be positive 2x. A negative over a negative, that's going to be plus. This does not simplify. Don't change it to a decimal. Leave everything in fractions with these problems. So now I have the right form. I have it solved for y. So my slope is 2, and my y-intercept is 17/2. So you can get positive numbers, you can get negative numbers, you can get whole numbers, and you can get fractions. So that's all the examples for this part of the section. In your homework, it's going to say to graph the lines. You do not need to graph the lines on this homework. You're simply doing these type of problems where you're finding the slope and the y-intercept. All right, have a great day, y'all.